All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from RicoScores. Hey, man, at this point, I'm about to stop wearing the Sean Taylor jersey because I'm not going to keep putting this filth and bad luck on this beautiful jersey that I have that I once thought was good luck, but now the Commanders have somehow defied that and tainted this jersey. So now I'm scared to even wear it anymore. But this is bad, man. I'm really scared, man. This is like, man, all-time low, like you see in the title, man. This is embarrassing. It's definitely looking like we're to the point that we're firing everybody, but you already know how these videos go. We're going to break down all of the coaches that had anything to do with this. We're going to break down every position group. We're going to talk about quarterback. We're going to talk about running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive line, Charles Leno especially. We're going to talk about Jack Del Rio, defensive line, linebacker, cornerback, safety, everything, man. We're going to talk about how we somehow had 9 sacks and still found a way to lose a game. We almost tied a franchise record in sacks, still found a way to lose. The Giants had 0 rushing yards before entering, like halfway through the third quarter, still found a way to lose. That's absolutely ridiculous, man. We got to talk about everything, man. I mean, I'm just appalled that we found a way to lose the way that we lost. I mean, the injury demon came to collect today too, man. It was getting us. It got the Giants a little bit too. They had to go the majority of that game without Darius Slayton. But man, and also, you know, I don't believe in like curses and stuff like that, but man, them black jerseys have not worked out yet. I don't blame the way we've played in them black jerseys on the black jerseys, but it is crazy that every time we go out there with them black jerseys, we're terrible. But I'm not blaming this on the black jerseys. We're definitely is bad coaching, bad play, bad a lot of stuff. It's not the jersey's fault, man, but it is crazy that every time we go out there with them jerseys, we look this bad. But yeah, man, before we dive into all of that, make sure you still farm that like button, still farm the subscription button, and still farm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, man. Make sure you stay tuned because I'm coming with endless content. Even though the season is looking very dark, y'all know how I get, man. We're going to start I'm working on a mock draft. We're going to start looking at potential defensive coordinators and head coaches that we can hire. I'm going to start doing like a rebuild series and things like that. We're going to start looking at like, man, these are some of the young guys that are already on the team. Guys like KJ Henry, Sam Howell, Brian Robinson. These are the guys that we can build with. And then these are the positions we need to focus on going into the offseason, free agency, and draft and stuff like that. So we need to separate the future from the guys that are just here until the end of this season type of thing. And I'm also going to be doing like maybe even some film sessions on some of those guys. So I'm going to try to prove to you why Sam Howell is our quarterback of the future, even after a game like he had today, which we're going to dive into later because it's not as much his fault as a lot of people are going to assume just off of looking at the stats, seeing 3 interceptions. But yeah, man, I'm really excited. Make sure y'all stay tuned for all of the content. I'm coming with all kinds of videos. And of course, I won't be live streaming this upcoming game against the Cowboys because it's on Thanksgiving. And at the way we lost against the Giants, do y'all even want to watch that game? But I'm going to be with family and everything, so that's why I won't be live streaming. I'll be back the following game. So, you know, we play the Dolphins December 3rd. So, actually, I will not be able to stream that either. And then we have a bye week December 10th, so I will catch y'all regular season game live stream again December 17th, just to go ahead and give y'all a heads up. But I will keep y'all with crazy content, daily content on the way back up until that point as well. But yeah, man, appreciate y'all. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get to it. Let's get it.
He's our quarterback for the 5-10 years, and I truly believe that.
All right, again, so the injury demon tried to come and collect. FL Bada got hurt, and our edge rusher room is just ridiculously thin as is. Shaka Tony been suspended for the whole season since before the season even started. We traded away Chase Young and Montez Sweat. J. Smith-Williams was already hurt and didn't play this game even before the game started. And then we left FL Bada. Injury looks terrible, looks like a long-term injury, and I'm really sad about that too. I mean, first of all, just the fact that he got hurt, but also the fact that the injury looks so bad with him having to be, they had to bring out the stretcher, not even the cart, and they put like an air cast on him immediately. That sounds like the type of long-term injury where he will not even be available until sometime this time next year. So we can't even expect FL Bada to be a part of this future edge rusher group to start next season. I love FL Bada and his talent, but that injury looked bad. So we were at a point where we had Joshua Pryor, who was out there doing late hits on special teams. And then Casey Toohill, who got a free sack when the whole O-line didn't block anybody, pretty much Willie Beeman for any given Sunday. We're going to talk about that later. You have KJ Henry, who had a great game. And then, is that it? Am I tripping? Oh, no, I'm not tripping, because technically Andre Jones, but I didn't really notice him out there. So those are your edge rushers: Andre Jones, Casey Toohill, KJ Henry, and Joshua Pryor. Those are our 4 edge rushers moving into next week, assuming, hopefully Jason Williams comes back healthy. We'll talk about that later when we get to the defensive end part, but Emmanuel Forbes even got hurt. He had an elbow injury, eventually came back. Howell took that cheap shot. People thought it was a concussion, but he cleared it. Butler got hurt at one point, had to come back in. So we had quite a few injuries, but ultimately, outside of the FL Bada injury, we ended up being pretty straight. But man, first of all, before we get into anything else, let's go ahead and talk about these refs, man. Because on that Sam Howell touchdown to put the team on his back, that run that he had, why was the whistle not blown when he got the touchdown the first time? Which pretty much allowed him to take that cheap shot at the end, which led to Curtis Samuel getting ejected. And I'm still just amazed that Curtis Samuel got ejected, because if anything, the Giants guy was causing more chaos and mayhem than he was. Curtis Samuel was the one with the helmet off. That's like the memes where when you got beat up and you still got suspended, glasses all crooked and stuff. I'm not saying Sam Howell got beat up, but the Giants player did more than Curtis Samuel did. Why did Curtis Samuel get ejected? And the Giants player not only did not get ejected with him, but I felt like, if anything, that Giants player should have been ejected and Curtis Samuel not. But then on top of that, the mics didn't work pretty much the whole entire game, so we never knew what was going on. We just knew Curtis Samuel got ejected, but we weren't necessarily told that. I'm still confused by what's going on with the mediocrity at the referee situation, because that whole play, none of that should have happened. If the first time Sam Howell got that touchdown, ref right there on the sideline just looking, didn't blow the whistle to make the play dead after he already got the touchdown, that whole thing could have been avoided. Curtis Samuel getting ejected, Sam Howell taking a cheap shot, all of that could have been completely avoided. Refs, man, just weekly comment on how bad the refs are every time, man. And moving on to Rivera, with how much better we literally are than the Giants, I'm at this point just assuming that we committed all of those turnovers because they hate Ron Rivera. I think we fumbled and threw interceptions at this point because they're sick of Ron Rivera and they want him gone, because there's no reason we're literally worse than the Giants. On paper, in every way possible, we should be better than these guys, but when you go 0-2 against them, how can we say we're better? No, actually, at this point, we're worse than the Giants. Easily, we're worse. They have a higher draft pick, but we're worse than them. We have more wins than them, but we're worse than them. We have more talent than them, but we're worse than them. Clearly, because at this point, when you're 0-2 against a team in the same season, what can you do? But this game overall was just terrible. The Giants were trying to give us the game, and we just did the best we could to give the game back. I know Giants fans are highly upset with us because they want a high draft pick, just like most of our fans probably do. And I know the Giants fans are even more upset than Commanders fans right now, because they're like, God dang, y'all suck so bad, we can't even outsuck y'all. That's a crazy sentence, but y'all are so bad at football. We were literally out there having a booty bowl. Like, we were literally, who was the worst? We were out there having a trash off, a incompetence competition, whatever funny way you want to word it. That was the booty ball today, man. Terrible play calling from both teams, terrible execution, sloppy play. And I think we went like the whole first half without a penalty. That had to be the sloppiest first half without a penalty I think I've ever seen. But then the penalty started to roll in later as we got into the game. We'll talk about that, especially on the offensive line, man. But yeah, you could tell neither of these teams looked like they wanted to win. Both of these teams looked like they wanted a higher draft pick, but by the way we were going out there playing. And also another problem that I had with Ron Rivera, and I've been saying this for years now, but especially like these last 5-6 weeks in a row, under Ron Rivera, it seems like something's always breaking. David Mayo finally has a game where he's not just complete hot dog water, pencil shavings, trash, useless, and then the offense is bad. Or like, we finally fix one thing and another thing breaks. If you just imagine a boat and we're having leakage, we find a way to patch that up, and then a new leak starts. That's just how it's been under Ron Rivera. We fix one thing and 3 things break. That just seems to be how it's always gone. And also under Ron Rivera, a common theme is that we're always the get right team every time. If you're ever struggling in any way, here come the Commanders to help you out. And we've had this happen. I've given you the stats or whatever happened every game. This game-wise, just alone, the Giants are dead last in points per game, but by halftime had already scored more than their average total game score. They were averaging around 12 points per game all season, just in general, for 4 quarters each game. They had 14 within 2. That's the type of stuff we do. If you can't get right, come play the Commanders and get right, man. You're on the verge of getting fired or benched. Come play the Commanders. We'll buy you another game, another season, another go. I mean, again, it's just crazy that we finally got a great game from David Mayo. Everything broke. Also, why another thing from Ron Rivera? Why do we always play below the level of our competition? Not to the level, because I know the phrase is we play to the level of our competition, but no, we always play right below. If we're going against the Eagles, a top 3 team, we play like a top 15, top 10 team in the NFL. We're going against the Giants, arguably a bottom 5 team, I guess you could say a top 28 team, maybe arguably the worst team in the NFL. We play like the worst team in the NFL. So we don't play to the level of our competition. We play below the level of our competition. If we played against the Giants or the Bears, how we played against the Eagles or the Patriots, we would have won all of those games. But for some reason, we match up against who we're going against. If we're going against a sorry team, we play sorrier. If we're playing against a good team, we play better, but not good enough. And that's just that's just everything under the Ron Rivera era. Also, did anybody notice how quiet that crowd was after we got those 2 sacks in 3 plays? In a 3-play span, we got 2 sacks to force a 3-and-out after Byron Pringle had that fumble on the opening second half kickoff. And like the crowd was dead silent. You could tell fans were already gone. Whatever fans that had actually gone, they left by then. So that's just a sign that Josh Harris is basically losing his fan base. He's losing his team that he's worked so hard to buy and work for, to get, and all of that stuff, to build it up in the offseason after Dan Snyder sold the team. So if anything, at the very least, he can use Ron Rivera as a scapegoat. And a lot of this is Ron Rivera's fault. But even if Ron Rivera was the perfect head coach, you still have an excuse to use Ron Rivera as a scapegoat to win back your fans. Oh, look, fans, we fired the head coach that was causing all of this bad stuff, even if it's his fault or not. And I could argue it is, but even if it wasn't, Josh Harris could be like, here's the face of all of the losing. We fired him. So now we're ready to move on. So there's like so many different reasons why firing Ron Rivera just makes sense at this point. Because even at the very worst, Josh Harris can use him as a scapegoat and basically win fans back by saying, hey, the big bad wolf, the guy, the face of why we were losing games is gone now. Come back. Come in. You know what I'm saying? So it's just pretty much over with for Ron Rivera, especially after L like this, because again, this is an all-time low. You could argue this was even worse than the Bears game. I mean, it's just crazy too, because how can you have 9 sacks and still lose a game? Turnovers. How can you allow 0 rushing yards up to the 3rd quarter and still be losing 14-9? Turnovers. Matter of fact, Ron Rivera is your head coach. Jack Del Rio is your defensive coordinator. That's a more specific answer. I mean, at a certain point, the Giants had 206 net yards compared to the Washington Commanders 279, and had as many sacks allowed with 9 as first downs converted, 9, and were 4 of 11 on 3rd downs at a certain point in this game, and they were still winning 14-12 in the 4th quarter. That's absolutely insane. These stats are crazy, like unheard of. I didn't even think you could lose games like that. And also, because projecting, I mean, the way we played against the Eagles and the way we played against the Giants, just assuming that we can't beat the Cowboys any of these upcoming 2 times we play them, especially this upcoming game, Thanksgiving in Dallas, ugly. Assuming that we go 0-6 in the division, that's fireable in my opinion, even if you won a Super Bowl the previous year. Even if we won the Super Bowl last year in 2022, you go 0-6 in your division in 2023, you got to be fired. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Andy Reid. If Andy Reid won the Super Bowl last year like he did, and then was 0-6 in his division this year, he's got to go. So Ron Rivera has nowhere near the resume of Andy Reid, so he definitely got to go. You know what I'm saying? I mean, a lot of people are saying, well, you don't fire people on a short week. No, don't let a short week stop you, because it doesn't matter how long we have to prepare. It's over with, man. It's literally just, we're done here. It's time to move on. And at a certain point, the Giants had double our points with Tommy DeVito starting at quarterback, dog. Come on, dog. Like, what else you want me to say? But shouts out to the Commanders, though, because, I mean, maybe Ron Rivera has this long-term plan of, you know, we lose to the Giants so they can't get a better draft pick. You know what I'm saying? Maybe Josh Harris asked them to do that. Go out there and sell that game so we can get a better draft pick, so my next GM and head coach can go out there and make some things shake. I mean, and it's crazy, too, because the fact that we were in range to win this game, we got so many bailouts from calls from, the offsides on 4th and 1. Which led to a first down, and we eventually scored a touchdown on that drive. Sam Howell throwing it to St. Jahan Dotson. That offsides was so unnecessary. It was a good call by the refs. That's what you're supposed to call, but it didn't affect the play. We didn't even try to do a QB sneak up the middle. We tried to get Sam Howell to run outside, and the Giants completely stuffed it. And it's like that offsides literally didn't affect the play. So if they didn't do that, we would have lost 31-12. Just to let y'all know. Fumble recovered by Terry McLaurin that same drive. Sam Howell also threw an interception that was called back from a defensive pass interference, which, technically that defensive pass interference was the reason that he was even through that interception. But still, it was so many bailouts on that final drive just for us to score our second touchdown of the game and our only extra point made in the game. Because remember, Joey Slide missed the first extra point. Also, this is Rivera's first 6 turnover game in his 201 games of being a head coach of the NFL. So could you argue this is an all-time low for Ron Rivera in his NFL coaching career? You could arguably say that. Moving on to Eric Bieniemy, man. First of all, we got some good and some bad. Some of the good, I want to shout out Eric Bieniemy for trusting his players and demanding greatness from them. Because when Logan Thomas fumbled one drive and then our defense went on the field, the immediate next defensive play, we went right back to Logan Thomas. And you could tell, Sam Howell threw the ball to him, so you could argue maybe it was Sam Howell's decision. But the way that the play was designed for Sam Howell to roll out right and have Logan Thomas underneath open, that looked like, all right, Logan Thomas, you fumbled the previous play. We're going to throw it right to you the next play so you can earn some trust back. And we're not going to give up on you. So shouts out to Eric Bieniemy for that level of patience. Also, getting Brian Robinson involved in both the running game and passing game was phenomenal today from him. I just didn't like that after that first Sam Howell interception, we got so conservative. The Giants literally knew we don't even have to defend the deep ball because they're not even going to attempt it after that first interception. It was basically like a punt on the first drive of the game, I believe it was. So I didn't like that from Eric Bieniemy to get just conservative after that. But the bad, in 5.5, at a certain point, 5.5 quarters, I believe we made it to 6 quarters. Washington only scored 1 touchdown against the Giants this entire season. And that drive started at the Giants' 21-yard line. We went 5.5 quarters against the Giants, only scoring 1 touchdown. And again, that drive started at the Giants' 21-yard line. So that wasn't even a real earned touchdown. Crazy. But man, I'm really happy that Eric Bieniemy finally started to run the ball. As of the second quarter, he started to run the ball, and the Giants literally couldn't stop us from running it. Whether it was Brian Robinson or Chris Rodriguez, Eric Bieniemy's finally got a run game going, so that's a positive. That's definitely a positive there. But red zone offense still needs a lot of work as well. Offense in general needs a lot of work. I'm not blaming Eric Bieniemy completely for this loss. It was a lot of execution things. It's hard to overcome 6 turnovers. What defensive coordinator can lead a team to a win with 6 turnovers? But still, there's some things we can nitpick on Eric Bieniemy. And like I said in my live stream, I like Eric Bieniemy. But I still like him a lot, but I'm not as high on him as I was before the season started. I have more hope coming into the season than I have right now. So even though I want to keep Eric Bieniemy, and I'm still willing to let him be head coach if that's what it takes. But if a guy like Ben Johnson is willing to come here and him and Eric Bieniemy can't coincide, Eric Bieniemy's not willing to basically be the sidekick to an Andy Reid again in Ben Johnson, I'd take Ben Johnson over Eric Bieniemy at this point. But I'm higher on Eric Bieniemy than a lot of y'all are out there. I still be willing to give him a chance. He still has the rest of the season to prove himself. I think ideally, best case scenario for me would be Ben Johnson head coach, Eric Bieniemy offensive coordinator if he's willing to do that. I just don't think he is. I feel like a lot of people are going to put a lot of unnecessary blame on Eric Bieniemy for this game. I don't think he deserves it. But do I want Ben Johnson? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Moving on to quarterback, you can't tell me that Sam Howell doesn't at the very least have heart. The hits he was taking, that pure will to win, you can't take that away from him, bro. That run, the cheap shot he took to come back up and to do what he could, man. He's one of the toughest players, not even just quarterback players I've seen for the Burgundy and Gold in my lifetime, man. The way he plays through injuries is ridiculous. I know the team rallies behind him. There's just no way they aren't willing to run through a brick wall when he's willing to run through a brick wall for them, literally. He tried to run through 3 defensive players to get that touchdown, and he succeeded at doing it, man. That's just crazy. Oh, wow. Right now, it's being reported by Adam Schefter, the Giants and Commanders locker rooms at FedEx Field have no hot water for the showers right now. Wow, that's crazy. Kayvon Thibodeau generated 8 pressures and 2 sacks across 35 matchups, a 22.9 pressure rate against Charles Leno. Golly, that's terrible too. Probably should have mentioned that in the offensive line part, but I wanted to go ahead and say that while I was looking at it before I forgot. Kayvon Thibodeau had a great day today, man. But yeah, breaking news. The Commanders, FedEx Field also has a new low. The Commanders are at a new low, and FedEx Field is even at a new low. There are no hot showers for the Giants or the Commanders. So I know the Giants players are super frustrated. Like, what is this? What kind of organization are y'all running? Going back to Sam Howell, first half, he had some good and some bad, quite a bit of bad. Second half, despite all of the mediocrity around him, he was still making plays with his arm and especially with his legs. I was very impressed by that, but he still has some bad plays. But let's talk about the interceptions. The first one was pretty much an arm punt, and I'm not sure if that was his fault or Eric Bieniemy, because I have a slight feeling that, you never know. We're not in the huddle. We're not in the play calling. We're not on the team to know. But I'm not sure if Eric Bieniemy just said, take this deep shot no matter what, just throw it down there, see what happens. De'Ami Brown can't separate down the field, and with you being a deep threat, your inability to separate down the field is like, well, what are you good for? So, I mean, technically, worst case scenario, I guess you could say that was Sam Howell's fault, but worst case scenario, it was an arm punt. If we don't convert that third down anyway, we just end up putting it to that point anyway. It doesn't really matter. The second one was terrible because he got hit and the ball was wobbly, and I knew it was going to be intercepted before it even was. That's on the offensive line. I mean, I guess you could say Sam Howell, just take the sack there. Don't try to throw it when you know you're about to get hit. And you can say pocket presence at worst case scenario, but I don't blame him for that one. And then the third one, I mean, first of all of the drops from the receivers and running backs, De'Ami Brown, Brian Robinson, even as great of a game he had, some really bad drops. But that third interception, man, I don't blame on him. And I'm going to go ahead and put my foot in the ground right now. A lot of people are saying Sam Howell isn't franchise quarterback after throwing 3 interceptions. But I'm just assuming y'all are just looking at the stats and not really watching the game, because those, especially that third one, I don't think y'all are actually in the mind of Sam Howell in the situation we were in. You got to remember that Charles Leno got a false start, which required us to use our final timeout because of Charles Leno's stupid self. So we have 29 seconds left, no timeouts. We're pretty much at the half field, at the 50-yard line. It literally makes more sense for Sam Howell to heave it up there and hope something happens. And he tried to throw it out of bounds, but it was so much pressure around him. So that's one thing. First of all, the pressure around him, what was he supposed to do? But secondly, his best effort to try to just throw the ball out of bounds, live to fight another down, live to fight another play, just get it out of bounds, stop the clock from going, is better than taking a sack. I know a pick six is literally like the worst it can get, but like, you gotta gamble, and he knows that taking a sack right there is literally game over. Literally game over. So literally in Sam Howell's mind, no matter what, before I snap this ball, no matter how much pressure's on me, no matter how bad my O-line sells me like Willie Beeman on any given Sunday, I gotta get this out my hand at all costs, no matter what. You could tell that's what he was thinking. He tried his best to, and then again, at the end of the day, there was just so much pressure around him. He couldn't even throw the ball. He couldn't even step him into his throw. I think his arm probably even got hit. What are you supposed to do, man? That boy played his heart out. I know he had 3 interceptions, but that was more so a poorly coached team, a bad O-line, a lot of bad stuff more so than bad Sam Howell. So a lot of y'all that are jumping off the bandwagon, the Sam Howell bandwagon, because he had a 3 interception day, I completely disagree. Is he completely devoid of blame? No, he is not. I've given you worst case scenario. If it is Sam Howell's fault, this is why. And so he's not, it wasn't like he was perfect today in any way, shape, or form. I wouldn't even necessarily say he was great today. But those 3 interceptions, especially that third one, we're not going to sit here and act like it's Sam Howell's fault and he's not a franchise quarterback after that. Now, running back wise, moving on, Brian Robinson does look like the future. I hope Antonio Gibson comes back healthy. I hope we sign Antonio Gibson to a cheap long-term deal to keep him here moving forward, because this is the last year of his contract. But we just got to be better, man. We got to be better in general. Brian Robinson had a great game, but those fumbles, those drop passes, you pretty much ruined your potential beautiful game. Beautiful game, man. But overall, outside of the bad plays he had, I loved on Eric Bieniemy's side getting him involved, and I loved what I saw from Brian Robinson. I loved what I saw. I absolutely, man. Outside of the drops and the fumbles, his fumble was recovered. Other people's fumbles weren't. He had a great game today, man. No matter what, running the ball, catching the ball, he was making guys miss in the open field. Also, Eric Bieniemy, nitpick for you. Why did we have Derek Gore running the ball instead of Chris Rodriguez in that first half run when we got to the red zone? and then we ended up kicking the field goal. He bounced it outside when he shouldn't have. He should have just stayed inside, lost yards. That was terrible. I'm just mad because, like, mostly, if anything, even if Derek Gore is slightly better than Chris Rodriguez, which I would disagree with anyway, but even if he was, say he was, why are we playing these veteran guys that don't really have a future with the team? Like, why are we not playing our young guys as much as possible? More Cole Turner and John Bates than Logan Thomas. More Chris Rodriguez than Derek Gore. Like, why aren't we playing more Emmanuel Forbes, Quan Martin, and Percy Butler, Khaleke Hudson, so we can see what these guys have as far as evaluating this roster for the future? So I just didn't understand that move at all. Do you owe Derek Gore something or something? Like, does he have your family hostage while you got to give him more plays? I don't know, Eric Bieniemy. But yeah, man. I loved what I saw from Brian Robinson running the ball, and I really liked what I saw from Chris Rodriguez up to the point that he fumbled. Outside of that fumble problem, and of course, being a running back, having a fumble problem is literally a death sentence. So we're not going to sit here and ignore that. But if he can fix that, he's serious. Him and Brian Robinson are serious without the fumbling. But of course, when you got to say without the fumbling, anything you say before that pretty much doesn't matter. So I know I'm not excusing it. Fumbles from Brian Robinson, even though it was recovered, and fumbled by Chris Rodriguez, killed a potential touchdown scoring drive. The Giants literally couldn't stop us that drive before Chris Rodriguez fumbled. No excuses at all. But if they can fix that, we may have something there. Wide receiver wise, man, poor Terry McLaurin. Did y'all see Terry McLaurin's face on the sideline with 8 minutes left in the second half? If you go back and look at that game, the live view of the game, look at like 8 minutes left in the second quarter before halftime. Terry McLaurin's face, man, he looked done. He looked absolutely done, man. He was looking like, man, the other team's number 7 is out here going crazy, getting more touches, getting more targets than me. So what's going on? Why is the other team's number 17 better than me right now? He just looked done, man. He didn't even look mad. He didn't look sad. He just literally looked through. Like, I'm just done with the season. I'm ready to move on. But, man, hey, Sam Howell to Terry McLaurin on slants were undefeated. I don't know why we didn't do it more. Also, shouts out to Jahan Dotson. I believe he only had 2 catches today. He had all 2 of them on that final offensive drive. Well, the final scoring drive, the one before that last drive. One was a touchdown. I don't know where he was the rest of the game. I don't know what's wrong with him this season, but he looked pretty good at least on those 2 catches. I'm just assuming he couldn't separate, but I gotta look at the all 22 to confirm that. Jamie Brown had the most open touchdown catch possible and dropped it, dog. I mean, literally, if he catches that and keeps running, it's an easy touchdown. He could jog backwards into the touchdown. That's terrible, Jahan Dotson. Also, shouts out to Terry McLaurin for being a game saver, because that touchdown that we eventually scored, he was the one that recovered that Brian Robinson fumble, I believe. I originally thought it was Jamison Crowder, but I was told it was Terry McLaurin, so shouts out to him for that. Also, shouts out to poor Terry McLaurin, because once again, he is yet to have a 100-yard receiving game this season. All these wide receiver ones, all these receivers that he's better than in general, and he has yet to have a 100-yard season. I blame Eric Bieniemy. I blame a lot of people for that, and that's just terrible. Moving on to tight end, Logan Thomas fumbles, keep going. Every time he's trying to fight for extra yards, fumble. It just seems to be a thing. Also, shouts out to John Bates for having a good game. He blocked really well, especially on a lot of those big Brian Robinson plays where Brian Robinson gets out in space. John Bates is the one leading the charge, giving him some blocking so he can get some more yards after contact or yards after catch. Moving on to the offensive line, Kayvon Thibodeau does not ball out against anybody but us, man. He beat Charles Leno for a sack and also had a stunt on him to the inside for another sack, all in the first half. That was just first half alone. Bruh, if Kayvon Thibodeau could have it, he would wish that he could play the Commanders 17 games a season. If we're in the offseason and we see those votes being put in for different rule changes, don't be surprised if you see a rule change. The Commanders have to play the Giants 17 games a season. Like, it's just a random vote for that. Like, who threw that vote in there? Best believe it was Kayvon Thibodeau, because he would have 40 sacks a season if he played us. Chris Paul had a bad moment where he gave up a sack against Dexter Lawrence, and then he also got beat by Kayvon Thibodeau, I believe, on a stunt at some point. I still like Chris Paul, but he had a bad game today. He played better against the Eagles somehow, who have a better defensive line than the Giants, in my opinion. So I haven't given up on Chris Paul, but he did have a bad game today. I can admit that. At least had very bad moments. And it's just crazy because Leonard Williams balled out against us at times today. I mean, Dexter Lawrence balled out against us. Kayvon Thibodeau, their defensive line in general balled out against us. But what I meant to say is that the Giants traded away Leonard Williams, and it felt like it didn't even matter today the way they whooped up on our offensive line. That's crazy. But one thing I can give this offensive line was that the run blocking was almost perfect. The run blocking, we can run it pretty much every play we wanted to, and I'm glad Eric Bieniemy finally figured that out 11 games into the season, and we got it going. But sadly, even when we had some momentum going, the running back would fumble and ruin all that momentum. And then even in general, until like those last couple of drives, the offensive line did a pretty decent job overall with pass blocking. It's really just Charles Leno getting whooped every play, Chris Paul getting whooped every now and then, and that was pretty much the story of the offensive line. But then later on in the game, when it mattered most, fourth quarter, Kayvon Thibodeau whooped up on Charles Leno again in back-to-back plays. 6 minutes left in the fourth, back-to-back plays whooped up on Charles Leno. The first one was a sack. The second one, I don't know how Sam Howell got out of that sack, but then he ended up getting sacked anyway because of that pressure, QB hit, whatever you want to call it, allowed by Charles Leno. And then he allowed a QB hit way later in the drive, the final drive of the game. And then he got that false start, which forces us to take our final timeout instead of taking a 10-second runoff, which pretty much led to that Sam Howell third interception. So you can blame Charles Leno for that Sam Howell third interception. Moving on, let's go to the defense. Let's start with Jack Del Rio. At a certain point in the game, we had 5 sacks on 12 dropbacks. That's incredible. With David Mayo leading the charge with 2, that's crazy. We had 5 sacks in the first quarter. That is the most sacks in an opening quarter in franchise history for the Burgundy Gold. Even our times that we were winning Super Bowls, the great Redskins of the back in the day, 91, 85, all of that type of stuff, we never had a first quarter with 5 sacks. We did that today, but what did it matter? We ended with 9 sacks and still found a way to lose the game to still allow the other team to score 31 points. That's crazy. I blame turnovers for a lot of it, but the defense deserves a lot of it as well. Now, I did one positive takeaway from this game. Del Rio finally learned how to blitz. We were sending DBs. We were sending all kinds of guys. Benjamin St. Juste got his first sack, I believe, this season. I think he had like 1 or 2 last season. Jack Del Rio started to draw up some really complicated blitzes, and I guess he only probably did it because it was Tommy DeVito. So if we go against an experienced quarterback like the remainder of the season, going against Dak Prescott and guys like Tua Tagovailoa, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, guys like that, we probably will go back to not blitzing again, which is going to make me sad. But at least today, he recognized he was going against a young quarterback and blitzed him. But, man, Tommy DeVito has some dots, man. He made some mistakes, but he was throwing dots, man. Those sideline throws to Saquon Barkley in the first half were ridiculous. 1 for a first down, 1 for a touchdown. That was crazy. And, of course, the Jack Del Rio special, blown coverages. We had a couple of them today. That's just the Jack Del Rio special at this point. I know we want to blame the players, but when you have so many blown coverages and other teams aren't doing it, you got to start to look at the defensive coordinator for that. Also, man, the Giants had 4 first-half touchdowns this season, only 4, and all of them have come against the Commanders. I just want you to think about that. All of the Giants' first-half touchdowns have come against the Commanders. All 4. That's ridiculous. 2 each the times we have played them. They haven't scored a first half touchdown against anybody else in the NFL. Ridiculous. I mean, being down 14-9 while allowing 0 rushing yards, though, and having 8 sacks at that time makes 0 sense. That wasn't technically the defense's fault, but at the same time, at a certain point in the third quarter, we couldn't stop them from running to save our lives. So, I mean, it just got to a point where you could just tell, like, Jack Del Rio, oh, you need to rush the ball? Oh, I can fix that. I can give you that. 0 rushing yards on my bad, Giants. We can go ahead and let you do that. It just really felt like at a certain point in the game, it was literally either a sack or a 25-yard, 30-yard game by the Giants, whether it be a running play or a throwing play. It was either sack or big play given up. Yeah, it's just absolutely ridiculous. I'm still trying to figure out why we couldn't cover Saquon. I know he's an elite player, but he's their best player easily. Why did we not focus on stopping him? He had like his best receiving day of his life. It was just crazy. And I thought it was funny during the live stream. I said this during the live stream. It seems like the Giants watched how we used Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson last week against the Seahawks and was like, oh, okay, we'll give y'all a taste of y'all own medicine with Saquon this upcoming week. Yeah, thanks for showing us how to do it type of thing. But yeah, man, probably my biggest problem with Del Rio is the mentality of this defense, though. The fact this bend but don't break mentality is killing me, dog. It's too conservative. We're always playing it safe. Conservative is kind of a play on words when it comes to Jack Del Rio, too. It's kind of funny. It's just like Rivera, man. The defense and this team as a whole is just too conservative. We don't have playmakers. I mean, when you think about it, the defensive coordinator, all those turnovers that we had, specifically, let's just talk about the fumbles, and all of them were forced fumbles. They weren't even like our guys just dropped the ball for no reason. All of them were guys punching the ball out and forcing a fumble. Do you ever think that the defensive coordinators call for their defensive players to go get a fumble that play? Like when he calls in the play to the Mike linebacker to tell everybody what the play is, what covers they're running, all that type of stuff. Do you think that he says, and then so-and-so is going to get a fumble this play? No, they just have playmakers. And you can argue it's talent. I can argue that it's both talent and mentality. We just don't have guys that are out there willing to make plays because our whole mindset is conservative. Don't give up the big play. Bend but don't break. So when in doubt, when you get to a ball carrier, just wrap them up and hold them so for somebody else to come help you. Don't try to get the ball out of his hand. I mean, at least Josh Norman, as much as we like to make fun of him, was out here forcing fumbles. It seems like we don't have anybody with the mentality trying to force a fumble except for Jamin Davis all the way back in like week 2 of the regular season. That's it. We don't have playmakers. Even going back to the Seahawks last week, you think the defensive coordinator called in for Devon Witherspoon to force that fumble on Sam Howell before the play started? No, they just have the mentality and the playmakers to go out there and force fumbles. That's the thing that makes me the sickest with Jack Del Rio, and the reason I want him gone the most, because we literally aren't even trying to make plays. I feel like, honestly, even if a player feels like there's something off, like Jack Del Rio calls in a play, the offense lines up in whatever they're about to do, and the defensive player's like, wait a minute, this may not be the right play call, Jack Del Rio. I don't even feel like these guys have the freedom to go make a play. There's just like, well, Jack Del Rio called this play, and even I don't think that's a good play call. I got to do what Jack Del Rio says. I mean, I just hate everything we got going on. Maybe I'm wrong, but I hate it. Defensive line-wise, it sucks that it looks like FL Bada has a fractured leg. I'm just assuming that he's probably gone, not only, of course, for the rest of the season, but probably even for a significant amount of time next season, the entire offseason, all of that. So I'm really sad about that because I really like him. But we're to the point we have no edge rushers left, man. KJ Henry, like I said, Joshua Pryor, Casey Toohill, and Andre Jones, who I didn't even notice out there. That's it, because James Smith-Williams even banged up, Shaka Toney suspended, and he traded away Chase Young and Montez Sweat. FL Bada looks like he's gone probably until this time next year. That looked bad. But hey, man, at the very least, we have KJ Henry stepping up. KJ Henry played today like you better not spend a first rounder on an edge rusher. You better spend that on Brock Bowers and or a left tackle. Left tackle, Brock Bowers, both will be beautiful in the first round if we could just, take Brock Bowers first, then trade back up into the first round with those other picks and take a starting left tackle there, franchise left tackle there. Who knows? But either way, KJ Henry played today like you better spend that first round pick this year on offense. I know you traded away Chase Young and Montez Sweat, but you better spend that first round pick on offense and not to get a starter over me. Because that boy finally had his first sacks of his career. Because remember that hate call against the Eagles, that should have been his first sack of his career, but they called that back. He balled out, man. And one thing I noticed, that him and Deron Payne worked really well together on stunts. Like, I didn't even see Montez Sweat and Deron Payne have that level of chemistry on stunts while they were there, while they were doing it. KJ Henry came in his first game really starting for real, and looked better at doing stunts with Deron Payne than Montez Sweat ever did, which is really weird. And I'm not trying to make fun of Montez Sweat because I still wish we had him, but that's just wild that KJ Henry came in and had better chemistry with Deron Payne that quickly. Also, he was making really good run stops. It wasn't just getting to the quarterback. He had great run stops. He had a pass deflection at the line. He did everything he could, man. Also, Casey Toohill had one of the weirdest sacks I ever seen, because on that screen that the Giants tried to run, nobody blocked. Like, usually they at least have one or two guys kind of blocking to at least give the illusion that it may not be a screen pass. Literally all 5 guys left. So Casey Toohill did have a sack, but I mean, that was like literally Willie beaming from any given Sunday situation again. That didn't even look real. That was so weird. Also, shouts out to Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne, because a lot of people have been calling them out. They had pretty good games today. They made plays against the run, and they both had sacks, I believe, or at the very least, I know Jonathan Allen did, and I know they both definitely had tackles for losses. So shouts out to both of those guys. They had a pretty good game today. I'm not mad at them. Linebacker wise, hey man, David Mayo had a revenge game, man. And like I spoke about earlier, it sucks that David Mayo finally wasn't incompetent for a game, and then everything else breaks, so it doesn't matter. That man had 3 sacks and 12 tackles for losses since entering the NFL in 2015. He had 2 sacks and 3 tackles for losses today. Actually, that was at a certain point in the game. That was at 1:44 p.m. That was still in the first half. Let me see what he ended with. Oh my, hey man, that boy David Mayo was sick of it, man. He was sick of the disrespect. My boy David Mayo ended the game with 6 total tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 2 so he ended the game with that. So the first half was pretty much the highlight of his day. He didn't have any more tackles for losses or any more sacks in the second half, but it is what it is. But still, man, that boy balled out in the first half. He may not have balled out all game, but he balled out in the first half. And then Jamin Davis is clearly food against wheel routes. The jig is up. NFL teams know this. They're going to start running wheel routes against him every game. Every game. It's been like the last 4 weeks in a row. Teams are running wheel routes successfully against Jamin Davis. Now that he's getting a penalty to stop the guy from getting the catch, or they're completing the catch. I mean, Saquon killed them all game. Anytime Saquon was matched up against him, it was bad, especially on the wheel route. At this point, I prefer Jamin Davis matched up on Saquon as an outside receiver than him coming out of the backfield. For some reason, Jamin Davis covering the wheel route out of the backfield is harder for him to do than him to basically be a placebo outside corner. It's crazy. Moving on to the cornerback position, Forbes was getting killed in that second quarter. Then he got hurt, and then he came back, and he was really good in that second half, man. He was really good in that second half. I feel like enough people aren't talking about that. Kendall Fuller, from the times I noticed, had good coverage. Benjamin St-Juste was straight. He didn't seem great, but he also didn't seem bad. And then moving on to the safeties, Quan Martin had a big hit on Darius Slayton, which ended up injuring him, and he was out for the rest of the game. But it was going to be like a 3rd and long first down, and the guy was pretty much open, but Quan Martin came and delivered a great hit to force it out of him. The Giants were probably going to score. If he completes that, Giants probably at the very least score another field goal before the end of the first half. So shouts out to Quan Martin for that. Cameron Curl, I did notice him make some bad plays today. I mean, guys open against him. I'm going to have to look at the All-22 to see if it was his fault, but Cameron Curl did not look great today from what I saw. But maybe that's just me from the live tape. I got to look at the All-22 to truly know whether it was a good game from him or not. Now, before we get up out of here, too, special teams wise, we got to talk about that. So can't go without talking about special teams, man. Because, boy, what happened today? First of all, Joey Sly, you can make 61 yarders like it's nothing, but miss PATs in 2 straight games. I don't understand that. What happened to punt blocking today? Punt blocking was probably the worst today I've seen all season. Jamison Crowder never had a chance. He literally should have basically just fair caught everything that was ever thrown his way. Anytime punted his way. Also, Byron Pringle fumbling on that kick return to start the second half. We already knew, like, oh yeah, this game's pretty much over. Even though the score was close, the way he fumbled to start the second half was like, all right, dog. And then Cameron Cheeseman, dog, what's good with you, bro? What's good with you? That last kick, that kick to take it from 14-9 to 14-12. High snap, terrible snap from Cameron Cheeseman. Tressway did everything he could to get it down there, which caused Joey Sly to do a low kick to make the field goal. And at this point, as bad as Cameron Cheeseman has been at long snapper, I'm just going to assume that the PAT that Joey Sly had missed today had to have been his fault. Now, before we get up out of here, just to let you know and to update you, the Commanders are now the 8th pick in the NFL draft with a 4-7 record. We'll see what happens with the Falcons. Maybe they're on a bye week, though. They may be on a bye week, so that may not affect anything. But either way, we have the 8th pick overall in the draft, and it's a tight-knit race, man. The Cardinals are second with only 2 wins. We have 4. You never know, and the Cardinals wanted so bad to beat the Texans today. So yeah, man, we have a chance to move up even higher in the draft. I think at this point, again, looking at the rest of our schedule, which is not very friendly to us, we have the Cowboys at Dallas, then the Dolphins, then a bye week. You can't lose on a bye week. At the Rams, at the Jets. Remember, Matthew Stafford will probably be back for the Rams, and they look better than people expected. At the Jets, Aaron Rodgers will probably be back for that, and he'll probably have already played a game or 2 before then, so he'll be warmed up. Then the 49ers, and then the Cowboys again. There's a very realistic scenario where we don't win another game this season, and we probably finish with a top 5 pick. We'll see. You never know. Maybe we surprise a team. Maybe we catch the Cowboys lacking the last game of the season because they've already solidified their playoff spot. We'll see. Who knows, man? I really don't know at this point. It's a really ugly situation, but hey, man, I'm trying to find all of the bright sides. But I'm really scared, man, because Dallas looks great. The way that they looked against the Panthers, the way we looked against the Giants, I'm not very optimistic about this upcoming game on Thanksgiving. So like I said in the stream, man, don't put your happiness into whether the Commanders win on Thursday or not. Enjoy food, enjoy family, enjoy video games if you have to, but don't let whether the Commanders beat the Cowboys or not on Thursday determine whether you're a happy person or not. Please, man. And the Cowboys look dangerous because they were at a certain point against the Panthers, 15 pressures on 33 dropbacks with 9 QB hits. So, if we thought the Giants were bad defensive line-wise against the offensive line and how bad Charles Leno was, wait till we play the Cowboys in a few days, man. A short week, too. Boy, I'm scared. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get a notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the content. I'm working on a video about Eugene Shin, the analytics guy that we brought in, how he likes to structure his teams, how he likes to prioritize tight end, a whole bunch of things like that, and his history in the NFL and how he's turned teams around and how he plans on turning our team around. So stay tuned for that. Again, like I spoke about in the intro before, well, technically before the intro video, I talked about how I'm working on videos about the future of this team, players that we're going to keep, that we should resign, all of that type of stuff, draft, mock drafts, free agency, all of that type of stuff, rebuilding, next head defensive coordinator options out there, next head coach options out there, all kinds of stuff. So if you wanted anything rebuilding, draft, coaching, anything like that, player, team building, I got y'all, man. So make sure y'all stay tuned for all of that. And of course, if you want to support the channel, because YouTube is tripping right now, please donate to the Cash App, $RicoScores, or the PayPal, WilliamAC94@gmail.com. I appreciate everybody that donated to the stream while we were live streaming. And if you donate while I'm not currently live streaming, after I'm done with this video, I will shout you out in the next video or live stream, man. I really appreciate y'all. I really do. And again, if you want to support the channel, that's the way you can do it. But make sure at the very least leave a like on the way out. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out, man. Content coming every day, y'all. I'm telling y'all.